pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. So I have a question. It's a social faux pas to wear white after Labor Day. Is it also a social faux pas on BookTube to do the pumpkin tag after Halloween? I just realized that it's going to be Halloween tomorrow in Tokyo, so I better get this sucker done. So I'm going to be a little bit flippant and just move through it rather quickly. This is an original tag by Josh of Literary Gladiators, and I will put a link to his original video in the show notes, as well as a link to Steve Donahue's, because I believe that he also tagged me on this. So I was double tagged. And I will tag a few people at the end, and if they're brave enough to tempt fate, tempt BookTube ostracism by doing a pumpkin tag after Halloween, then there's no pressure, there's no hurry. But if they feel that they wouldn't risk such shunning, then they better hop to it. Okay, so without any further ado, I am exhausted tonight. Tomorrow is my busiest day, but it's actually my morning classes are cancelled, so tomorrow I can rest. Question number 1. Pumpkin, a writer you always make a point to read in October. I don't do any seasonal reading of any kind. I'm as likely to read a Christmas... Well, I hate Christmas, so I'm not going to read anything about Christmas ever, but I'm as likely to read a horror novel. No, I don't like horror, so... no, I don't. I don't care about seasons. Period. 2. Pumpkin Spice, a work you would read to impress a millennial. Well, it goes without saying, Beowulf. Wait, what millennium are we talking about anyway? 3. Pumpkin Pie, a work that makes you think of autumn. Well, I don't think of autumn. I don't care about autumn, or spring, or summer, or winter, beyond my personal comfort vis-a-vis the weather. Otherwise, I have no relationship whatsoever with seasonal anything, but obviously Ellie Smith's novel Autumn, which I read in January, because that's the way I roll. I'm curious about the new Karl Ove Knausgaard memoir called Autumn, and I hear it's really good. I'm working my way through his Mein Kampf. I've done the first 2 volumes, and I'm going to take my sweet time because I absolutely love those. Number 4, Pumpkin Cheesecake, a work that was challenging to read but was a rewarding experience. Many, but the one that I would kind of pull off the shelf in my mind would be George Eliot's Whopper, Daniel Deronda, which I studied in undergraduate school. You've been hearing me bitch and moan about grad school a lot recently, and I loved my undergraduate days. I loved that novel. I don't know if I loved it. I certainly enjoyed reading it and studying it. I don't remember a whole lot about it. It's about British Jews in the 19th century, and I remember my visceral connection to it. If I'm remembering this correctly, I hadn't thought of this until right now. It just kind of came back to me in a flash. I believe the protagonist didn't realize that he was Jewish until he was older. Have I got that right? Or he doesn't find his Jewish family until later in life, something like that. And I remember that I'm an adoptee, and at that stage of my life I was searching for my birth family, so there was a really strong visceral resonance to that aspect of the story. 5. Pumpkin Bread, an underrated work from a well-known writer. Well, I've just talked about it recently on maybe a Friday Reads, but I will regurgitate a bit. It's a 1916 novella by Edith Wharton, Zingu, which I read. It was my X title for the A to Z reading challenge, and I didn't expect to love it, and I really did. It's about a group of hoity-toity upper-class New York women who have a literary salon, and they're very pretentious about who they'll allow into the group, and they've got one lady that's on probation, and There's all kinds of nattering about whether she's suitable, and they invite a published female author to come and speak to their group, and then there's all kinds of intellectual one-upmanship, and it's just hilarious. It's about a 30-page, it's basically a short story, available free on the internet, and to me that's the best Wharton that I've ever read. 6. Pumpkin Soup, a work that you first enjoyed but then lost interest. How much time do you have? This happens to me at least once a week, if not more. Wait till you see my bail video for October. So I'm going to give you 2 examples. One where I lost interest in the midst of reading a book. Well, that's what causes me to bail, and I bail on books a lot. But a notable example, I haven't seen too much about this on BookTube, but I wasn't on BookTube when this novel came out last year, and that's The Knicks by Nathan Hill, which to me started out really strong, and I was enjoying the humor, writing, and the character development, and I was fascinated by the way the story was unfolding, but it was all downhill, and by the time it's a long book, I don't know if it's 500 pages, but it's a whopper, and I stayed with it until the 50% mark, and then I was just thoroughly disgusted with it. It's satire, right? And I don't do well with satire, and I just felt that this was a quintessential, I've been using that word in almost every video, but it is a quintessential word for me. The Knicks was a quintessential example of why I hate satire. It's like I feel, I respond to fiction emotionally, and I feel that there's no room within satire to do that. And I really felt that really strongly. Like, to me, the mother, I don't remember anybody's name now, but the main character's mother was a very sympathetic and interesting figure, but I just felt her portrayal became more and more satirical, and it just made me sick. So I bailed. And this is 2 hills for the price of 1. The one where I lost interest after the fact was Joe Hill's novel from last year, The Fireman, and I will never get those 20 hours back that I listened to that on audiobook. And I think I gave it 4 stars. It's a pretty interesting story, and well told, and then the more I sat with it, I downgraded my rating and thought that was a waste of time, and it was a stupid story. So that happens to me. I have downgraded Margaret Atwood's Hag Seed retroactively. I can feel Steve throwing daggers at me. 7. Pumpkin Doughnut, a light 5-star read. I don't really go in for light reads, so the lightest one I could think of was last year? The Nest by Cynthia Dupree Sweeney, which I thought was a wonderful novel, and it was kind of light, but I liked it a lot. 8. Pumpkin Picking. Within the last year, in which genre did you purchase the most books? The only genre that I purchase books within is literary fiction. That's not completely true, because I had to read a whole bunch of other shit for these book challenges, but we won't talk about that. Oh, and of course porn, and that's very expensive. 9. Pumpkin Carving, a work that could have been trimmed down. I think any book over 500 pages could be trimmed down. I'm pretty skeptical about the worthiness of anything that would be longer than that, but I haven't tackled many, so I'm probably talking out of my ass. But that's one of my most frequent complaints when I review a book, is, it should have been 100 pages shorter. So one that comes to mind, because I kind of have a sweet spot for this novel, I can't remember exactly when it was written, but maybe 5 or 10 years ago, a gay British novel called Pilcrow by Adam Mars Jones, which I read, I believe it was last year, and it was 525 pages. And it was about a severely disabled British boy growing up in, I believe, the 1950s. And he's disabled because of some kind of a childhood illness, and then he is institutionalized, and he grows up in this institution, and boy, the attitudes towards disability were not very evolved anywhere in the world, but certainly not in the UK at this time. And the story is really heartrending. And then this young lad, he discovers his sexuality. Eventually he moves out of the hospital, but he's in the hospital for 5 or 10 years, and then he goes to it's kind of like a boarding school for the disabled, and it's there when he's kind of approaching adolescence that he discovers his sexuality. And it's really a sweet, sweet story, but it should have been about 100 pages less. There was a visceral through line to it, and it got buried in just an excessive amount of detail about every single aspect of the institution, and then the school, and all the personalities of the teachers, and it was just too much. So if it had been about 100 pages shorter, it would have been a book that I loved, but I certainly did like it. 10. Pumpkin Painting. Pumpkin Painting. A book with magnificent illustrations. Well, hands down, or hands up, or hands where I can see them, it's of course The Joy of Gay Sex. I will show you the illustrations right here. "11. Pumpkin Ice Cream. The most random work you would recommend." Obviously, it would be the Tobias Smollett novel from, I believe, the 18th century, The Adventures of Roderick Random. 12. What is your favorite way to enjoy pumpkin? What is your favorite dish where pumpkin is the main ingredient? I don't mind pumpkin pie. I don't have much of a sweet tooth, but I like a nice piece of pumpkin pie on occasion. In Japan, I've started using pumpkin in stews and things, and it's really good. But I don't get all this pumpkin latte, pumpkin blah blah blah, and I don't get it. All right, so this is going to be a short tag. I was hoping it would be. So the last one, pumpkin patch. Who do you tag? So if you're willing to get a tag video up before the end of the month, or if you don't give a rat's ass about when it goes up, I tag very gently, very tentatively. Just one reader, Run Right Reads, and Memento Mori. And of course anybody else who would like to do this tag. So thank you for watching. Bye.